In Harmony Creek, life was peaceful and predictable. Neighbors greeted each other, children played, and the days drifted by in quiet routine. But just beyond sight, a silent, eight-legged storm was gathering. The town stood on the edge of something unknown, a calm before chaos. Soon the quiet would be broken by the faintest whisper of silk. At first it was just more cobwebs, clinging to fences, shimmering in the morning light. Pets grew uneasy, refusing to go outside while birds vanished and silence settled over the fields. A creeping tide advanced, spiders moving as one, their webs connecting every tree and rooftop. The day held its breath, the spiders were coming. The first wave arrived not with a roar, but with a silent, creeping certainty. On the outskirts of Harmony Creek, millions of tiny spiders began to move, driven by ancient instinct. It was a migration, ballooning on silk threads, carried by the wind into town. Lawns vanished under a living blanket. The world was wrapped in silk, and awe turned to dread as the swarm reached every doorstep. As the afternoon wore on, the tiny spiderlings were joined by their parents, the architects of the Great Migration. Spiders of all shapes and sizes poured from the landscape, a river of shadow and legs reclaiming the town. They flowed down Main Street like a living liquid, covering cars and streets in a relentless tide. Webs draped over power lines, growing thick and heavy, plunging neighborhoods into darkness. Families huddled together, their homes now cages, as the spiders found their way inside. By nightfall, Harmony Creek was transformed, a town cocooned in thick, shimmering webs. Every building, every street was draped in silk. The world as they knew it was gone, wrapped and silenced. Inside, families huddled together, sealing doors and windows, hoping to keep the invasion out. Communication failed. The town was isolated by a silken sea. Silence fell, broken only by the soft rustle of the swarm. As dawn approached, they waited, afraid of what the morning would reveal. The siege brought a heavy silence, broken only by the constant skittering of spiders. Trapped in darkness, every sound was amplified, every shadow magnified. Fear and exhaustion settled in, but families drew closer, united by their shared ordeal. Amid the skittering, a quiet resilience emerged, proof that even in darkness, hope endures. Scientists soon realized Harmony Creek's nightmare was nature's doing, a perfect storm of weather and biology. A mild, wet winter led to booming insect and spider populations. Then, sudden dry weather and unique winds created perfect conditions for a mass spider migration. Invisible currents guided thousands of spiders straight to Harmony Creek, a meteorological bullseye. From the spider's perspective, this was no invasion, just a mass response to a symphony of environmental triggers: humidity, sunlight, vibrations, and pressure. Countless species moved at once, ballooning through the air or marching across the ground seeking new territory. The result? A rare, breathtaking phenomenon. Landscapes blanketed in silk, a testament to nature's drive to survive and spread. The swarm at Harmony Creek was a rare chance for science. Experts like Dr. Thorne marveled at the spiders' collective behavior. No leader, just simple rules followed by millions, creating a living river. Their silk, both travel tool and information superhighway, was studied for its strength and variety. Unique atmospheric conditions, including electric fields, gave the spiderlings an extra lift, turning nature into an electrostatic launch system. The spider swarm was more than a spectacle. It was a sign of an ecosystem thrown off balance by unusual weather and human influence. Birds vanished, insects exploded, and spiders multiplied unchecked. Harmony Creek became the epicenter of a global story: how climate and land use ripple through nature. The swarm was nature's dramatic way of restoring balance, a powerful reminder of our world's deep interconnections. When the swarm descended upon Harmony Creek, shock froze everyone in place. The world turned upside down as spiders covered homes, lawns, and trees, transforming the familiar into a nightmare. Fear, deep, primal, and uncontrollable, took hold. The enemy seeped through cracks, turning sanctuary into a trap. That first night, Harmony Creek learned just how fragile human composure can be. In the isolation and darkness, with official communication lines severed, a different kind of contagion began to spread: misinformation. People trapped in their homes, connected only by sporadic cell service and social media, became sources of their own news. Rumors, born of fear and amplified by imagination, traveled faster than the spiders themselves. One person would post about seeing spiders the size of their hand, and soon, the story would morph into tales of monstrous arachnids breaking through windows, whispers of the spiders being venomous, a new and deadly invasive species spread like wildfire. Each rumor added another layer of terror to the already nightmarish situation, creating a feedback loop of escalating panic. Myths began to form, attempts by the human mind to create a narrative for an event that defied explanation. Some turned to religious interpretations, viewing the swarm as a biblical plague, a punishment for some unseen sin. They saw omens in the patterns of the webs and judgment in the relentless advance of the spiders. Others gravitated toward conspiracy theories. It was a government experiment gone wrong, they claimed, or a biological weapon unleashed by a foreign power. These stories, however outlandish, provided a strange sort of comfort. It is often easier to confront a human enemy or a divine judgment than to accept a world where nature itself can become so randomly and overwhelmingly hostile. The few snippets of information that trickled in from the outside world were often distorted or misinterpreted. A news report mentioning the scientific term mass dispersal event was twisted into a story about the spiders dispersing a poison. A scientist's comment about the spiders being harmless to humans was dismissed as a government lie meant to quell panic. In the absence of a trusted, authoritative voice, people chose to believe the stories that seemed to match the intensity of their fear. The truth, that this was a natural, albeit extreme, biological event, was too mundane, too simple to account for the sheer horror of their experience. The narrative of malice was more compelling. This whirlwind of misinformation had real-world consequences. It led people to take dangerous actions. Some residents, believing the spiders were venomous, considered fleeing their homes and making a desperate run through the swarm, a far greater risk than staying indoors. Others, convinced it was an attack, wasted precious resources trying to create makeshift weapons or barricades against an enemy that could not be fought in a conventional way. The fear of the unknown, fueled by rumor and myth, proved to be a powerful and disruptive force, turning a community of neighbors into a collection of isolated, terrified individuals acting on bad information. Yet, amidst the overwhelming fear and panic, another, more complex human reaction began to emerge. It was a sense of awe. For a small number of residents, once the initial terror subsided, they were able to see the event for what it was, a breathtaking if terrifying spectacle of the natural world. They looked past the individual spider and saw the whole. They saw a living, breathing system of immense scale and complexity, a force of nature operating on a level they had never imagined possible. From the safety of their homes, they became reluctant witnesses to one of the planet's rare and powerful phenomena, a sight that no human had likely ever seen on this scale before. These individuals were often those with a closer connection to the natural world to begin with: gardeners, hikers, or even the high school science teacher, Mr. Albright. He found himself glued to his window, not with fear, but with a kind of feverish scientific fascination. He watched the intricate flow of the swarm, noting the different behaviors of the various species. He saw the orb weavers methodically building their massive webs, and the wolf spiders moving with purpose across the ground. For him, the terror was eclipsed by a profound sense of wonder at the sheer, unbridled power of biology in action. He was seeing his textbooks come to life in the most dramatic way imaginable. This sense of awe was also tied to the strange, ethereal beauty of the scene. When the moon rose high in the sky, its light filtered through the countless layers of silk, transforming the town into a ghostly silver wonderland. The webs, heavy with dew, sparkled like a tapestry woven from diamonds and moonlight. It was a scene of chilling, surreal beauty, a landscape that was both monstrous and magical. A few residents, armed with cameras, began to document it, their artistic instincts overriding their fear. They were capturing images of a world remade, a terrifying and beautiful testament to nature's ability to reclaim and transform the human environment overnight. This duality of emotion, the coexistence of profound fear and profound awe, is a uniquely human response to the sublime power of nature. We are humbled by forces so much greater than ourselves. The spider swarm was a powerful reminder that humans are not separate from the ecosystem. We are a part of it, and sometimes we are merely bystanders to its immense and mysterious processes. For those few who could see past their fear, the swarm offered a glimpse into the raw, untamed heart of the wild. It was a terrifying privilege, a lesson in humility delivered by an army of eight-legged messengers. As the night wore on, the primal instincts of fight or flight took hold. Some barricaded themselves inside, determined to defend their homes, while others, driven by fear, made a desperate dash for freedom. The swarm stripped away modern life, reducing everything to a simple choice: do you stand your ground, or do you run? In the darkness, every resident had to answer that question for themselves. When the first rays of sunlight pierced the silken gloom, they didn't bring the relief the residents of Harmony Creek had prayed for. Instead, the light revealed the true, breathtaking scale of their predicament. The town was unrecognizable, a landscape sculpted from a nightmare. Every surface, every tree, every building was encased in a thick, multi-layered shroud of white and gray silk. The webs, now heavy with morning dew, sagged and dripped, catching the dawn light in a million tiny prisms. It was a world mummified. The sight was perversely beautiful but overwhelmingly oppressive. The hope that the spiders would vanish with the night just died with the rising sun. This was their new reality. The first challenge of the day was the most basic sustenance. For those who hadn't stocked up on groceries, the situation was growing dire. The refrigerators were emptying, and the thought of venturing outside to the corner store was, well, unthinkable. The simple act of getting the morning paper or a bottle of milk was now an impossible quest. Daily routines, the bedrock of a normal life, were completely obliterated. There was no school to go to, no work to attend, no gardens to tend. Life was reduced to the four walls of their homes and the constant, unnerving awareness of the silent, crawling siege just outside the window pane. A grim acceptance began to set in, replacing the frantic panic of the night before. Survival now depended on patience and resourcefulness. Families took stock of their pantries, rationing food and water with a seriousness usually reserved for blizzards or hurricanes. They began to see their homes not just as prisons, but as life rafts in a silken sea. The focus shifted from fear of the outside to the practicalities of surviving on the inside. How long would the food last? How long until the power was restored? How long would they have to endure this strange, silent occupation of their world? These were the questions that now dominated their thoughts. The spiders, for their part, were less active in the direct sunlight. Many retreated into the thicker parts of the web structures or sought shade under eaves and in the shadows of buildings. The constant flowing movement of the previous day had subsided, replaced by a still, watchful presence. They were not gone, they were simply waiting. This lull in activity provided a small psychological respite for the trapped residents, but it was a tense calm. The town of Harmony Creek was holding its breath, caught between the horror of what had happened and the uncertainty of what was yet to come. The first day of the siege had begun. In crisis, Harmony Creek's residents became resourceful. George Miller, a retired engineer, salvaged an old hand-cranked well pump, restoring water for his block. Neighbors created a simple code, colored sheets in windows and flashlight signals, to communicate needs and emergencies. David, an amateur chemist, shared a peppermint spray recipe that repelled spiders, giving families a sense of control. With no power, families rediscovered board games and storytelling by candlelight, reconnecting in unexpected ways. Even as fear lingered, these small victories and connections helped them endure. Fear gave way to unity as Harmony Creek's crisis deepened. Neighbors organized food sharing and supply runs, risking quick dashes between homes. Teenagers set up a group chat relaying vital updates and coordinating help. The volunteer fire department led by Chief Brand became a command center, checking on the vulnerable and dispelling rumors. Mutual aid became their strongest defense, forging bonds stronger than any web. The spiders divided their homes, but the ordeal wove the people together. Days passed and a grim routine set in. Mornings meant checking supplies and spider defenses. Afternoons, brief, careful movements. Nights, tense, candlelit vigils. The constant threat sharpened their senses and shrank their world to the size of their homes. Anxiety and exhaustion became universal, but so did resilience. They survived by focusing on the present, learning what they could endure. Each day was a step closer to reclaiming their lives. The siege ended quietly as a cold wind signaled the spiders' departure. Spiderlings ballooned away on silk, followed by the adults retreating to the woods. Residents watched in cautious hope as webs thinned and green grass reappeared. There was no celebration, just relief and disbelief. The nightmare faded, leaving the town changed. Harmony Creek was finally theirs again. With the spiders gone, Harmony Creek emerged, blanketed in decaying silk. Cleanup became a communal ritual. Neighbors armed with brooms and pressure washers reclaimed their streets. Laughter and conversation replaced silence as children ventured outside again. The process was slow but healing. Each strand removed a step toward normalcy. Yet scars remained, damaged homes, haunted memories, and a new awareness in every resident. The town was unwrapped, but its people were forever changed. Even after the webs vanished, fear lingered in Harmony Creek. Nightmares and anxiety persisted. The town's relationship with nature became wary and defensive. Pest control boomed, and every crack was sealed against future threats. Some, like Mr. Albright, tried to replace fear with understanding, teaching about spiders' roles in nature. The town's reputation suffered, and some families left, unable to move on. Harmony Creek survived, but the shadow of the swarm would never fully fade. In the months and years that followed, the story of Harmony Creek became a modern fable, a lesson in resilience and adaptation. The town did not just recover, it evolved. The shared trauma, paradoxically, made the community stronger and more interconnected than ever before. The informal communication networks and support systems developed during the siege became permanent fixtures. A new annual town festival was established, not to celebrate the swarm, but to celebrate the community's survival and unity. It was a day of remembrance, but also a day of gratitude for the strength they had discovered in themselves and in each other. The event spurred a new wave of scientific interest in the region. Dr. Eris Thorne and his team established a permanent research station near Harmony Creek to study the delicate balance of the local ecosystem. They created early warning systems, monitoring insect and spider populations to predict any future imbalances. The town, once a victim of a natural phenomenon, became a partner in its scientific understanding. School curriculums were updated to include lessons on local ecology, teaching the next generation not to fear the natural world, but to understand and respect its power and complexity. The fear was being slowly replaced by knowledge. Perhaps the most profound change was a philosophical one. The people of Harmony Creek had been given a terrifying front-row seat to the raw power of nature. They had learned the hard way that humanity is not the master of the environment, but a small, interconnected part of it. This humbling experience fostered a new, deeper respect for the wild world that existed just beyond their doorsteps. They began to see the forests and fields not as scenery, but as a living, breathing system with its own rules and rhythms. They had forged a new, unspoken covenant with nature, one built on a foundation of awe, respect, and a healthy dose of caution. The town never fully returned to the blissful ignorance it had known before the swarm. That innocence was gone forever, traded for a harder-won wisdom. The memory of the Silken Siege served as a permanent reminder of their vulnerability, but also of their strength. Harmony Creek became a testament to the idea that even after the most terrifying of ordeals, life adapts, communities rebuild, and understanding can eventually triumph over fear. they learned that nature is capable of creating horrors, but that humanity, when united, is capable of enduring them and emerging, changed but unbroken, on the other side. Harmony Creek's story is one of perspective. For spiders, the swarm was instinct and survival, a force of nature, indifferent and unstoppable. For people, it was a test of fear and resilience, revealing the strength of community. The event reminds us, we are tenants in a wild world, part of a vast web of life, never fully in control. Nature's power humbles us all. The great spider swarm of Harmony Creek was not an ending, but a new beginning. The town learned that true safety lies not in shutting out nature, but in understanding and respecting it. The ecosystem became a vital partner, not just a backdrop. The people of Harmony Creek emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected, united by hope and resilience. The web of life surrounds them, a reminder that living within it requires respect, awareness, and humility.